don't you hate it when that happens? Well, in this video, we're going back to basics and talking about the 3 reasons why you're squeaking and how to fix them. My name is Josh Gu, and I'm taking my years of experience learning, teaching, and performing, and sharing all of my best clarinet and music tips so you can get more out of your practice, and most importantly, have fun. You can learn more about all of my many resources at quickstartclarinet.com, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit the bell to get notified when I post new videos. If you find this video helpful, you should know that I actually have an entire playlist of a whole bunch of different back to basics topics to help you with all of these fundamental problems, because whether you're just starting out or you've been at it for a while, or it's been a few years since you've gotten back into the clarinet and you've taken a very long break, the fundamentals are all the same, and getting more competence with your fundamentals and developing those skills will make everything that you play easier. So getting started with the squeaking here, the absolute number one reason for squeaking that should always be your first go-to is, of course, the reed. No, that's not true actually at all. It's not the reed. Most of us say reed or embouchure or our top issues and reasons for squeaking. It's not those. The number one issue for squeaking and the number one reason why you squeak is the fingers, actually. Making sure that you're covering all the holes. This is actually one of the hardest parts of playing the clarinet, especially if you're a beginner, especially if you have smaller hands. Covering the holes is one of the trickiest aspects of the clarinet that most other instruments don't really have to deal with so much. So getting those big holes fully covered is very important. Especially when you're doing something like crossing the break is where finger issues can come in, or when the pinkies are involved. Crossing the break, you're going from A to B. It's so easy on the A key to lift these fingers up too much and have these fingers lifted up too much, and then they have so far to travel that it's very easy for them to miss, especially the ring fingers being a smaller finger. Trying to cover a bigger hole is a big problem. Another finger issue that's very common going from like B to C sharp is we lock this pinky straight and then we have to move the whole hand, and then you can see that that ring finger is coming uncovered, and then that's going to lead to a squeak. So anytime that you squeak, I want you to blame the fingers first and check in with them. And a couple ways to check in with them is, one, find the note that you're squeaking on, identify the note that you're squeaking on, and just play that one note. So with crossing the break from A to B, like I demonstrated in the beginning, I'm squeaking on the B, so I'm going to play just B and check in with that without playing the A before. And I'm going to even visually look at your fingers in person or in a mirror or in a video is fine too, and make sure, okay, all of those holes are very well covered, and then try playing the B. If the B still doesn't work, double check your fingers again. Another common issue that might happen is if you're squeezing really hard and putting a lot of tension, you might accidentally bump a side key, like I'm bumping this side key or bump this side key, and that will cause problems. Another thing when you get a lot of tension too is maybe your fingertips are too much, using the fingertips to cover the hole and not able to get a good seal versus using the good flat part of the finger. So paying really close attention to that and making sure, like, okay, my fingers are relaxed, everything's covered, I'm not bumping anything. And then as you go to actually blow and set your embouchure and play, also make sure that you aren't squeezing extra or moving your hands at all as you go to actually play as well. So checking that one note will tell you if it's a finger problem or not. If you're 100% confident, 110% confident that your fingers are perfectly sealing everything, and just on that one note, it's not coming out and you're having problems, then it might be something else, but we'll talk about those reasons in a minute. If you are able to get that note coming out well when you check your fingers and just start on it, then you're having a finger problem transitioning from that note. So from A to B, like I mentioned, it's very easy to have the fingers too far away and then miss as you're trying to jump to all those holes. So play B, get it sounding good, go to A without moving your fingers hardly at all, and then go right back to that good fingering for the B and feeling really secure on the holes. And this doesn't go for just crossing the break. This is for whatever it is that you're doing. Maybe you're doing like a high B to D or something like that, or D going down to B is an even more common one where the finger coordination maybe just isn't quite right. So get each individual note really good and then work on minimizing the coordination and better coordinating the fingers as you move between the two notes. Now going on to squeaking reason number 2. This has to do with the embouchure and more specifically the voicing, where you're kind of overshooting things. This tends to happen more on bigger leaps than just going up the scale. So say you have something like a low C jumping up to an E. We think of that as this really big transition and this really big jump, and then we try to do a bunch of really big transition with our embouchure and with our voicing, and then we get something like this. And we end up overshooting the interval of the E, because when we press the register key, that does the work of changing the register if we have good air support going into the instrument. So if we also try to change the register with our embouchure and voicing, then we're going to overshoot it and end up a partial too high and be playing a squeak rather than the note that we're aiming for. This one you can pretty quickly rule out fingerings, because C to E, you're not moving a lot of fingers. It's pretty straightforward. However, you should still blame the fingers first. Always, always, always when you squeak, blame the fingers first. So do check in, can I play the C? Can I play the E without squeaking? Then as I make that transition, am I making sure that I'm not slipping off the thumb hole or miscoordinating this or not covering those holes fully or something like that? Still blame the fingers first. But then check in with your embouchure and voicing and say, am I trying to get this register change to happen in my mouth and in my voicing? Or am I trusting that the steady air and pressing the register key will get it to come out? And again, these are more rare, but this is probably the second most common reason we squeak, is over adjusting as we're doing a leap, especially a leap across registers, but still always blame the fingers first. And then our third reason for squeaking, and the third thing to fix with your squeaking, is if you're having maybe equipment issues or just really bad embouchure. So really wrong embouchure that will cause squeaking is putting too much mouthpiece in your mouth, where you'll just get a squawk on everything. That sounds like this. And it's really honky, really squawky. Just put less reed in your mouth and you should be okay. The other one that's a little bit harder to diagnose is if there is an equipment issue, and that will be something like a very subtle leak or something like that. But you'll know that that's the problem because it'll happen pretty consistently when you're playing in a certain register of the instrument or on certain notes, where above a certain note it'll be fine, and then below that note it'll get a little weird and then start squeaking. So that could be an equipment issue. The other telltale sign that it's an equipment issue is it happens every time, no matter what. So when you go back to your first finger exercise of, as I play this note, can I play the one note that always squeaks just on its own? If you can play it on its own and it doesn't squeak, then it's probably not an equipment issue, and it's probably a finger issue or potentially that embouchure shifting issue. And then the last thing on the equipment side too is the reed. Making sure that your reed isn't chipped, making sure that the reed is lined up well with the mouthpiece. If the reed is really, really, really old, then it gets more flexible and can maybe have more tendency to squawk. If a reed is out of balance, that can also cause issues and give it a tendency to squawk. So the reed could be a problem, a leak could be a problem, but those will be generally pretty consistent and pretty reproducible. If you can play the one note without squeaking, but it's when you start moving to the note that causes problems, then probably a finger problem, or maybe an embouchure voicing or embouchure tightness over adjusting that could be the problem. So between these three problems and the three reasons why you might squeak, I would say the number one is fingers by far. Probably 80 to 90% of squeaks are fingers. The next one would probably be the embouchure voicing, like I talked about, and changing, over adjusting when you're doing a big leap. That's maybe 10% of squeaks. And then the last 5 to 10%, honestly probably less than 5%, comes down to potential equipment issues, bad reed, a leak in the instrument, things like that. And if it's happening all the time and you can't even play the one note without it squeaking, then it's likely an equipment issue to look into, or just an egregiously wrong embouchure thing with too much mouthpiece, or maybe very too little or very too tight of embouchure could be part of it as well. So hopefully this gives you some ways to diagnose what might be going on with your squeaking. Always, always, always check in with the fingers first. Let me know if you have any questions about this in the comments, and I'll also put a link to the entire Back to Basics playlist in the description and probably the pinned comment as well, so you can check out all of the other Back to Basics videos that will help you to get your fundamentals in really good shape. So thanks for watching this video, and I look forward to seeing you in another one. And last but not least, a huge heartfelt thank you to the Dennersons. This is like the Quick Start Clarinet family who supports the channel and helps to make everything that I do possible. If you would like to support the channel and get some awesome rewards in return where we can work one-on-one over video and you can have my full support moving forward on your clarinet journey, then go to quickstartclarinet.com/supporter.